Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the undergraduate webinar series, an interactive online platform connecting high school students to the Ashoka community. In these series, we will be covering a range of topics related to Ashoka University's undergraduate program. Our esteemed faculty and academic counselors will be guiding students in understanding the various aspects of the university. This includes academics, student life, admissions, careers, and other topics that are often common queries for incoming students. I'm Janvi Datta from the Office of Admissions at Ashoka University. I was also a student of the founding batch, and I will be your moderator for today evening. Thank you for joining us for today's session, writing personal essays and presenting yourself in interviews. Please feel free to post any questions you might have in the Q&A box at the bottom. We will be taking them up at the end of the session. I will be joined today by Mercia Prince, Deputy Director at the Office of Admissions at Ashoka University. She will be talking to you about writing personal essays for college applications and preparing for interviews. Without further ado, let's get started. Over to you, Mercia.
Thank you, Janvi. And hello, everybody. Let me just start and share my screen here, and we can get right into it. Okay, so some of you may have attended the last few weeks. We've had sessions every Friday, capturing various aspects of the admissions process. Maybe some of you just attending this for the first time, but what I want to do is I want to take a couple of minutes as we start and just do a quick recap and just highlight some important things from the last few weeks so that we can just get right into today's session post that. So, in the first session with Vineet, you may have heard him talk a lot about the kind of students we're looking for. So Ashoka is looking for students who are well-rounded, who have high potential. We also follow a very holistic admissions process from the application stage till the actual selection stage. And each application, each applicant, each individual is evaluated in their unique context. And as you know, application forms are already open, right? The round one deadline is the 18th of November. That's coming up very quickly here. So please apply early so that you can get your decision latest by the 13th of January. So you don't need your final grade 12 scores for it. You can get your decision as early as before even some of your pre-boards happen, right? And your mock exams happen. If you submit your application form, you would have to immediately, a few days later, write your assessments, which is the Ashoka Aptitude Assessment and the on-the-spot essay to complete your application. So a lot of questions have come to us asking us if this is an entrance test. No, our assessments are not an entrance test. Our assessments are a part of the application process, and you would have to complete the application, complete the assessments in order for your application to be complete. So as you probably know, it's on the website. Round one assessments are on the 29th of November. And so you can start preparing for that as well. It'll be soon after you submit your application form. So all those who are then post that, shortlisted for the interview round, you will meet with a panel. There is a very thorough shortlisting process, which includes your application form, which includes your assessments. And then those who are shortlisted will meet with the interview panel. Post the decisions, of course, if you get a final offer from us, the financial aid form will be open to all and will be accessible. It's an entirely different process. And so that's something that you can involve your family in and apply for aid if you wish to. So what are we going to talk about today? As you know, we're going to talk about writing personal essays, application essays, and also presenting yourselves in interviews. So I'm going to use the next 25 minutes to quickly just sort of tell you what we have experienced. You know, the entire admissions office has over the last many years interviewed thousands of students and also read even more application essays. So whatever I'm going to tell you today is sort of based out of what we have read, out of our interactions with students. And so hopefully this will be helpful for you. This is not a conclusive. There are probably a lot more things out there, but maybe this will give you a sort of base to start with. So personal essays and interviews are very complementary, and ideally they should have a high correlation because all personal essays are read. They're read at the time of evaluation and shortlisting for the interview process. So that's the first step, right? So So it doesn't matter how many applications we get, we read all applications, we read all essays, and we evaluate all essays and applications. And then if you're shortlisted for the interview round, your interview panel as well reads your essays before the conversation with you begins. And your essays sort of give us a foundation or a base to interact with you, to start a conversation, to discuss things that are important to you. Both the personal essays and the interviews are avenues to gauge, your sort of depth of understanding, your engagement, the way you think, and just to give us, maybe clarify some things as well. So I'll get into that a little bit more in detail. So we'll start very quickly with personal essays. To begin with, a good question to ask, because personal essays are not a part of every university's application process, right? Especially if you're in India and you're applying to some, popular public universities in India, a lot of them don't ask you for personal essays. So good questions to ask yourself would be, why do universities require you to submit personal essays? What is that particular university going to do with these essays, right? What is their intent? What is their admissions process? How do these essays feature into that? Another question would be, what is the intent between each of the essay prompts? Some universities will just ask you for SOP, like a statement of purpose, or just one personal statement. As you know, Ashoka has 3 questions, so 3 prompts, and I'll talk more about them. But question to ask would be, what is the intent behind each of the prompts, right? What is it that they really want to know? Or how can your personal essays add to your overall application? You don't want to put things in your essay which are necessarily all over your application form in other areas. You want to use your essay space to add value to your application. Of course, there might be some overlap. You may want to pick up something and talk about something in much more greater detail, which you have mentioned elsewhere, but the aim is to see how can your personal essays actually add to your application. And then, of course, finally, because we get so many applications, we read so many essays, how will your personal essays, in some sense, help you stand out, right? To some extent, among thousands of applications received by any admissions office. And this is not just about Ashoka. This could be, any other place that you're applying to as well, right? So how will your personal essays sort of stand out among others? What would make the person reading your essay, someone you probably never meet, in an office tucked away somewhere, say that, hey, I want to actually meet this candidate. I think it would be worth having a conversation with this applicant. So that's sort of what you want to leave behind, okay? So these are some questions that you can ask yourself. So as you know, our essays this year, if you've looked at the application form, this is what we're asking for in the essays. So we want to know and understand in our essay 1, how you observe, how you perceive, how you think. So if you're trying to understand what is the intent behind essay 1, right? So we've got 3 essays. As you can see, the first one is our main one. It's for 400 words. So our intent in this is really to know how you think. We want to know how you as an individual think. And so we've broken down this essay for you. We've given you multiple sort of parts to it. And what we want to do is see how you work your way through each of these aspects in this prompt, right? So you can read the prompt for yourself. It could be any prompt, but this particular prompt is about a belief or an opinion you had held, which you question and examine. We don't want to know only the narrative of what the belief or opinion was. What we want to also know is, why did you start questioning that, right? What sort of process did you undertake in trying to examine this thing? Did you do some research? Did you talk to people about it? Did you get other opinions? Like, what did you do about that? And then, of course, what was the end result? And what did you change about yourself? Or what changes did you see in your own thought process after you had, sort of questioned and examined this particular opinion or belief? So the first prompt is really about the way you think. It's about how you think. The second essay for us, so the second essay prompt for us is 150 words. And what we want to know here is something very personal. We want to sort of understand a part of your life or an event or a relationship or an experience or whatever it could be, right? Which significantly shaped you. So it could be something that was a one-time thing. It could be ongoing. It could be anything, and it's completely unique to each person. And so this prompt is more personal. Like, we want to really know something more about you, which is not there probably in any other part of your application form. So you can be as candid and as honest as you want in this. You can, really give us a deeper understanding of you. So that's our essay 2. Our third essay is a little bit more futuristic. We don't want to limit you to just applying to Ashoka or being in class 12 or being 18 or 19 years old. We want you to think a bit ahead. What would life look like in the next decade? And do you foresee any development or any cause or any innovation, something that you personally think is going to change in the world, right? And something that is going to change the world. So what will you want to contribute to that? And how would you want to participate? And how would you want to add value to that? So you may want to be a little imaginative here, think of it creatively, but think realistically as well. I mean, you know what's happening in the world around us now. So maybe you could talk about something that you foresee in the next decade. So this prompt is really a little bit more futuristic. It's also 150 words. So since the word limit is quite specific for each one, you'll have to really think about it and make every sentence and every word count. So what makes good essays, right? So for us, we would say, and I've had many discussions about this with a lot of our team members and people who've been reading so many essays, and I think all of us agree and say that a good essay would be something that has really addressed and engaged with the prompt. You have not tried to take an existing essay that you have written and try to force fit it into this prompt. You've actually looked at this prompt, you've understood it, and you've said, okay, and then you started writing to address the prompt, right? Writing to sort of address the intent behind the prompt. So that would be a good essay for us. A good essay would also be one that supports and substantiates whatever it is you say, whatever point of view you take, with some research, with some facts, with some logical reasoning, right? It's not just something you're throwing out there which doesn't seem to have any backup. So we would like you to, in whatever way you analyze each of those prompts, right, to come up with something that's substantial. So we want to see your prompts, your essays that are substantiated. And of course, for us, because these are personal essays, we like to see that you are reflective. We want to know how thoughtful you are. And so your essays should focus on reflection, should focus on genuine critique, if you're critiquing something, right? And also focus on whatever it is that you're learning and taking away from that experience that you have narrated, that experience that you have engaged with and that you have put down in your essays. This would make a good essay for us. And when we read a good essay, we can tell that, hey, this is a good essay. This candidate has, addressed the prompt, understood what we're asking, has given enough evidence of having thought about it and researched, and also enough evidence of how they have personally interacted with it and have learned something from it and have taken away something from it. Some of you may already be very reflective people, right? You are naturally very reflective. You've thought about, you think about things, you take time to think about things from multiple perspectives. But then there might be some of us who are not necessarily easily reflective. Things don't really hit us very quick and it takes us a long time. So what I thought I would do is I would put down some things here. And if you see, these are just my few thoughts to help you sort of reflect, right? If you've never written an essay, you've never written personal essays, you've never had the opportunity to put yourself out there on paper for college, right? And you don't have a starting point. This is an essay that you can do, even just for anything, right? You can take a picture of this if you want, but let me just run some of these by you. Like think about a defining and challenging moment that has left an impression on you, right? And this is a very personal exercise, so you don't necessarily need to show this to anybody, right? So think about anything in the past, maybe recent past, maybe early childhood, whatever you want to think about, and you feel that, that was really something that was very challenging, or really was something that really influenced me and defined a time in my life. I think about key people, family, friends, neighbors, random strangers that you've met, or books that you've read, TV shows or movies that you've watched, music that you listen to, right, that has influenced you. And it could be positively or negatively. It doesn't have to only be positive. we get influenced in different ways by different things, right? So think about what has influenced you as a person. Think about things that you're passionate about. Maybe some of it you're pursuing, and maybe some you haven't had the chance to pursue, right? But what is it that, if you had to really ask yourself, what is it that you're really motivated about in life, and what is it that you're really passionate about? That would be a good sort of train of thought to go down. Also, think about things that you appreciate in yourself. A lot of times we're very quick to judge ourselves and be very harsh about ourselves and our shortcomings, our weaknesses. But think about things that you actually like about yourself and you actually enjoy about yourself. Or if you don't know, talk to people around you and ask them what they like about you, people who you trust, people who know you well. Think about areas of strength, that you possess. Of course, think about things that you want to develop, things that you want to change, things that you see yourself working on already. Another thing that I always think about is, if you know how someone spends their free time and their pocket money, you're going to know a lot about them, because the rest of the day is already scheduled, right? School, classes, tuition, homework, meetings, Zoom meetings, assignments, extracurriculars. But how you spend your free time and your pocket money is really in your hands, right? And it says a lot about you. It says a lot about how you prioritize your time. It says a lot about what's important to you. So that would be something to think about. Also think about things, attitudes in other people that irritate you or irk you, or that really fascinate you, that really make you maybe question or challenge, or things that you really adore, right? Again, these things will also give you a deeper understanding about yourself. And then, of course, think about your own aspirations. What do you see for yourself? I don't know if 5-year plans, 10-year plans, what you see yourself make too much sense. I mean, this year they probably don't at all. But in a sense, just think about what you would aspire. You could change your mind, but maybe what your aspirations are, right? And of course, what you want to contribute to your family, to your community, to people around you, to maybe even strangers. What do you see yourself contributing to, and why, right? So I think if you sort of start thinking along these lines, you may get a little bit of idea into yourself. And I think this is important for when you start writing your personal essays, to be able to first reflect on yourself, because all our questions are quite reflective. We want you to reflect. And so it's important that you take some time out, take a few days to just actually think about yourself and to reflect about yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great, whatever it is, so that you actually have a clearer thought process as you start writing your essays. So what then should you do and not do when you're writing your essays, right? So the first and the most important for us is write your own essay drafts. These are very personal essays. We don't want somebody else to write them for you. We don't want you to pay anybody to write them. We don't want, even a close friend to write them for you. Even if you're not used to writing essays, we want you to write them because they are really true to you as a person. Before you submit, please get feedback, proofread, get feedback from somebody you trust. Ensure it's someone you trust, because the essays are personal and you may not necessarily want to share everything with everybody. So find someone you trust, but then write your own drafts. And like I said before, think and engage with each prompt, with each topic. The third one is really important for us. Be honest and genuine. So genuinely represent yourself. It's important for you to be honest, because this really is the avenue for you to talk about yourself. Over the years, we've read thousands of essays, and the essays really make you want to get to know the person, know more, try and understand this unique young person, right, who is filling out this application form for a university. And so we want you to be, and some of you may think, I haven't had anything spectacular happen in my life, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be, some deeply challenging thing, or something that you think would be very life-shattering. It has to be honest, and I think that's more important. And sometimes, even if the most simplest of experiences can be extremely genuine and honest when you present it. So write with clarity, and if you're a creative person, you can be a little creative, but we would say try to be a little bit more precise and formal with your writing. If you're not creative, please don't attempt to be creative. It's not going to probably come out well, but be clear. if you like using, if you're a person who speaks very simply and likes to write in simple terms, be simple about it. If you like to write a little bit more complex, you can do that as well. But the aim is that you communicate whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. And then, of course, structure and link your ideas and paragraphs, right? In the do not section, our first and foremost sort of warning would really be, please don't plagiarize, don't copy paste. These are personal essays. We don't want you to copy paste any other essays, even from our own sample, forms that we put up. We've seen people have copy pasted our own essays that we have put up. We run all essays through plagiarism checks. We want these to be yours, right? Also, don't dramatize or fictionalize your writing. This is not a place for creative writing per se. So this is personal. It has to be legitimate. It has to be real to who you are, because, if and when you do get called for an interview and that conversation happens, then you want to be able to talk about it because it is a part of your life and part of your story. Don't make sweeping statements, right? Substantiate, like I had said, don't make just generalizations without proof, without any sort of data or statistics. This one is important. In your essays, don't underestimate yourself, but also please don't overestimate yourself, right? Because it's very easy to tell. So be balanced. I think that's important, to be balanced. So don't underestimate yourself, but also don't overestimate yourself. The essay section is also not the place for you to summarize your achievements or your extracurriculars. The essay section really is for you to address those prompts, right? There's a separate section for you to talk about your achievements, your ECAs, your academic, non-academic engagements. So please don't use the essay section to summarize your achievements. And then, of course, please don't use WhatsApp or texting language, don't write informally or casually. These are essays for your university, right? So be as formal as you can and address the prompts. Stick to the word limit. Some people we've noticed don't like writing too much. So a 400-word essay is written in, like, say, 150 words, right? That may not be helpful because then you would not have really addressed the prompt completely. But then again, some people really do like to write. So 400 words can easily be 800 words, right? That won't work either. So stick to the word limit. Don't be too brief. And of course, don't overshoot the limit. So these are just some do's and do nots as you're writing your personal essays. I'll quickly move into the interviews section so that we can combine this together and then you can ask your questions after that. So like I said earlier, the personal interviews are connected to the personal essays, right? Again, so why do we conduct interviews, right? What is the aim of an interview? So the aim of interviews from our side, from us sitting on this side of the table really, is to know and to understand your context and your story. So when we're interviewing students, it can get a bit personal, it can be intellectual, it can be conversations on academics, it can be conversations on your interests, it can be conversations on instances and circumstances that you have faced. Whatever it is will come out of the application form. So we're going to use your application form as a base, but it is to know your story and to understand your context. We also want to understand the legitimacy and depth of your claims and interests, right? You can say that, I love physics, or I'm passionate about economics, or I'm a footballer, or I've been dancing for many years, right? So you can say a lot of things in your form. So I think the interview really is a place where we try and really see, okay, are those things really legit? If you're really passionate about this, tell us what you've done. Tell us, in what depth, what have you learned from it? So that's what we want to sort of gauge. We also want to know your willingness and openness to learning. So the conversation can sometimes be a discussion. There can be multiple views. So we want to see how you sort of engage with multiple views and how open you are to the discussion. The interview is also a good place for us to sort of see how well you know yourself and the world around you, right? And what are we checking for? So we're checking for if you're a good fit for the university, if you're a good fit for a liberal education program. We want to know that you will succeed at Ashoka. We want to know that you will succeed in a liberal education program, right? So that's what we are checking for. But on the other hand, we also want to check and see that if Ashoka, this program is a good fit for you, because you may be really bright and really smart and maybe Ashoka doesn't have what you need. And so maybe Ashoka may not be the best place for you. So we want to kind of check and see if you're a good fit for us, we're a good fit for you. So that's overall what we're checking for. We're also checking to see what is your unique contribution to peer learning, because we believe in peer learning. We believe that students learn more from each other than they probably learn in class, because they spend more time with each other, right? And it's a residential program. So what will your contribution be to peer learning? Your peers, to your friends, to your classmates, to your residence mates, and then of course to see if you will be able to commit, to persevere, to complete the program, to excel, and to really succeed. We want to know that you have the grit and the drive to see this through. So these are sort of some things that we are looking for. So how do you want to present yourself in the interview? So I just put some things down on presenting yourself well. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are many, many other things, but just a few things that I felt were important that we look for. Of course, be punctual. And this year, since all interviews will be online, be a few minutes ahead, be online a few minutes ahead, and wait for your turn. Research the university and the courses and the program. Know about what you're applying, because showing up doesn't mean you're going to know the answers, right? So do your research before you come for the interview. Be present in the moment. When you're there in the interview, be present in that moment, in that conversation. Don't let your mind wander or be distracted. Be present there, because it's a short time. The interview ranges from between 20 to 25 minutes to, say, 40, 45 minutes, right? That's not a long time. And you do want to be present in that conversation. You want to have the presence of mind. You want to be able to respond and, reason and discuss well. Listen to the question. I don't assume. Oftentimes you think you know where the interviewer is going with the question, right? But maybe you don't. So wait till the question is over before you respond, right? So don't assume you know what the answer is going to be like, or don't assume you know where they're going with that question. And once you hear the question, engage, respond, and substantiate. And I think we've talked about this quite a bit, but listen and then respond. Also be open-minded. You're allowed to, in an Ashoka interview, you're allowed to critique, you're allowed to disagree, you're allowed to say that you have a differing view, but you're not allowed to belittle. You're not allowed to put anybody or anything down, including a board exam that you didn't like, or a certain kind of curriculum or anything outside. We don't want you to belittle anybody here. What we want you, even if you don't like something, we want you to be able to critique it. Give us a reasoning as to why you're not in favor of something, okay? A very important one is don't self-promote, but also don't hold yourself back by saying what is true to you and who you are, but don't self-promote. You've put down all your information in the application form, in your personal essays, in your assessments, so we've got a lot of information about you, right? So use this as a conversation. So don't use this as a place to sort of promote or market yourself. Of course, think before you speak. It's always okay to ask for a minute if you need time, or to write down some points if you want to do that. That's allowed as well. So take pause if you need. And of course, when it gets to personal questions, be a little, be comfortable to share. And if you're comfortable, share. And be honest. If you're not comfortable, you can say that I'm not comfortable talking about something, and that's okay as well. Just a few more very quick things. Is a very, very important one is if you don't know the answer to something, please say that you don't know. It's better to say that you don't know than to try and wing it, or to try and cook up something on the spot, or to try and pretend like you know, right? That's not genuine. So if you don't know the answer to something, it's okay. You're not expected to know the answer to everything, right? I don't know the answer to most things. So you can say that you don't know. Don't be anxious. This is a conversation. Yes, there are elements of interviews. There will be back and forth, but don't be anxious. We want you to come with a, with a cool head. We want you to come saying that, hey, whatever happens, I'm going to enjoy this conversation. Okay? Please come with a good attitude, an open-minded attitude, an attitude to enjoy the conversation. Don't be dismissive. Don't be insulting or condescending. Just, come with a good attitude. of course, be mindful of time, because some questions will require a slightly longer answer and some won't. So adjust the timings in your head for your responses, right? Also, maybe you don't realize this, but for us as interviewers, we want to learn from you. I have learned so many things from so many students who have come for Ashoka interviews, about books, about movies, about projects, about the environment, about science, about mathematics and music. I've learned a lot of things. So from our point of view, we also want each conversation to be meaningful, to be thoughtful, be something that we can learn from as well, right? And hopefully you will learn something too in that conversation, but we also want to learn something for you. So this is where we are coming from. So just to summarize, and this is my last slide, So what is it that we're actually looking for, right? In our essays and in our interview, we're really looking to see how you think. We're really looking to see, are you curious? Are you analytical? Are you thoughtful? Are you just disinterested and dull and you don't like to think at all, right? Can you think from multiple perspectives? And despite it being a short time that we have with you, it's very quick to find these things out about students. We really want to know how you think. We also want to know how you learn, right? Do you learn from people? Do you learn by introspecting? Do you learn from mistakes? Do you learn by observing? Do you learn, by doing art or observing art, or by watching movies or by reading books? So how do you learn? What is your favorite way of learning, right? Some people prefer to learn in a classroom. Some people prefer to learn by discussions. So how do you learn? We also want to know what drives you. Are you driven by this passion for knowledge, to gain knowledge? Are you driven by challenges? You're very competitive and challenges really excite you. Are you driven by, wanting to really get expertise in certain fields? Or by empathy and compassion? Or are you driven by excellence or problem solving or money or a great career? It could be anything, right? So what is it that's motivating you in life? What motivates you every day to keep going? That's what we want to know. We also want to know how you behave and interact in general. What is your conversation like in that room as you present yourself? Are you somebody who listens? Are you someone who's communicative? Are you somebody who seems to be thoughtful? Are you honest, or are you superficial, or are you condescending or dismissive? What kind of a person are you in that, and not just in that setup, because whatever happens in that setup is reflective of what's going to happen generally in life, right? So in summary, I would say once again that your personal essays and your interviews are very closely connected. They're both opportunities for you to really express yourself, to say things that you may not be able to put down in a very objective form otherwise. So use both these spaces well, and express as much as you can, as honestly as you can. And I know everybody will say just be yourself, and that's probably, very cliched and probably hard. What does that even mean? But we would like you to be your best self, right? Just put your best foot forward, and be content with the way you present yourself. I'm done, so I'll stop sharing my screen here. I know how. And Janvi, I'll hand it back to you.
Hi, thank you so much for that. So we have a lot of questions that have come in, so why don't we dive right into that? So I'm just going to start by reading out a couple, and you can start by answering them. So one of the first questions, very much in line with what you said, is from an anonymous attendee. It says, I'm not very good at writing. Should I give my essay to someone who can check and improve the style or the tone, or should I submit the essay raw?
I would say that your first draft or your first 5 drafts, depending on how well you think you write, should be written by you. But I would also say that please get your essays checked. Check for grammar, check proofread, check for just structure, check that somebody else or a couple of other people actually understand your essay. Let them read the prompt, let them read your essay and see if it actually makes sense, right? I would also say, please go to people you trust, like I had said before, but also people who tell you the truth. You know, you don't want to go to people who are only going to say, oh, this is great, right? Or people who are going to agree with everything you say. So go to someone who will give you constructive feedback, but do show it to somebody and let them help you finalize your draft. But you need to write your draft by yourself.
Okay. The next one says, how do I conduct research for a personal belief that I hold about myself?
Okay, so that's a good question. So if there's something that you think about, right, and or you believe and you hold, and say you've heard an opposing view, I would be curious to know, why does that person think differently than I think, right? You can maybe start with conversations with other people. Talk to a few people, ask them what they think about this particular thing that you believe. And preferably talk to a variety of people, because if everybody around you holds on to the same view, then you may not get too far with that. But that's a good place to start. Then, of course, it's important for you to read up on these things, right? Because a lot of things, I mean, everything that we hold on to and we believe comes from somewhere, right? These are philosophical hand-downs, actually. So in some sense, we believe it. We may not really even know why we believe it. So it's good to research going backwards to see, where did this idea come from? Where did it start? You can start with a simple Google search, probably, but then look at articles. Don't just read Wikipedia, but look at articles, look at content that you can get, or talks that people have done on it. There's a lot of stuff out there on anything that you and I may believe. It's important to, so what you're researching is not necessarily you. At that point, you're researching the belief in itself. And if other people believe that as well, why do they believe that, right? And lately, as we know, we're all into communities. So there are a lot of communities for everything. So there are shared beliefs. So it'll be good to go back and, it'll be good to read and research as to why those people as well believe what you believe. I hope I've answered that, but...
No, thank you. I'm just going to move on to the next question. Okay, it says, could you please elaborate on supporting and substantiating our essay with research and facts? Doesn't substantiation with research and facts make it seem more like an academic and less like a personal essay? How does a student strike that balance? Should we include citations in our essays?
Okay, so good. I was actually hoping somebody would ask this, because while these essays really gauge or aim to gauge what you think, right? We also want to, we also are okay if you do quote something or you cite something. Of course, you have to give credit, right? If you're quoting anything, please mention who said it, right? Even if you're not familiar with doing academic quoting, like how it's done in a regular bibliography, but do mention where, the person's name, at least to start with. And yes, in a way, we want you to be able to reason whatever it is that you're stating, right? We don't want you to completely go down the academic wing, because these are personal essays. But if you are making a statement that is non-personal, that is a generic statement, or a sort of like a generic statement, you would want it to be a little research. Or if you're putting out numbers there, right? You're saying things like most people or everybody. I think we should just stop saying everybody and nobody, because that's probably not true in general. But if you are saying that many people, so where did you get that many people, right? Like, what have you been, where is your source of information? So if you're making those statements, yes. But if your essay is completely personal, where you aren't making any reference or any general statements, then of course you wouldn't have to cite anybody.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next question says, what are the types of experiences that students should write about in their personal essays? Are there any examples that we could possibly share of, well-written essays that we have received?
I want to answer this, but I don't want to answer this as well, because, I think I'm going to pass, because I think this is very personal to you. Like, if I tell you that you should write about a certain thing, maybe a lot of you will write about that, right? And that's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for you to be able to reflect and think and write on your own. So like the first question is about something around you. I mean, all three questions are personal, right? And yet they have content that pushes you to look outside as well. So people write about all kinds of things. I'm not going to name any, but students write about things that are very personal, that have happened to them in their own homes, in their own life, things that have really sort of impacted them. But students also do write sometimes about, even in a very personal essay, write about things that are like something that they have observed happen and which has sort of impacted them, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be anything that is going on within their close circle of life, right? So, or something that they watched. You know, human beings are very interesting that way. We get affected by a lot of things, and a lot of things also make us think. So I think if you sit down and start writing or start reflecting, you will be really able to come up with a list of 15, 20 things, and you can pick any of those that you want to write about, as long as you feel that you've got enough content about that.
Okay, thank you. So the next one says, in any of the essays, is it okay if we reference an essay previously written in the application form?
In the same application?
Like, for example, if essay 2 says with reference to essay 1, like that.
I think that's okay. I'm not sure the team agrees, but I think that's okay. I think it's okay. I mean, I'm guessing this is a very one-off sort of question, but if you do want to save some space, you can say that I have elaborated on it in like essay 1 or something like that. Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there are a few questions that have come in that are very specific to essay 1, essay 2, and essay 3. Right. So why don't I'm going to divide them into sections like that. So yeah. I'm going to talk about essay 1 first. So the first question says, should the first essay topic be a very important or a huge issue for me? What I'm thinking about might not sound like a major issue, but it's impacted me. So can I still write about it? Can the first essay also be a personal belief that I held, something more personal, something that's deep and candid?
Yes, yes, and yes to all of those. It doesn't have to be like a mega event. It can be just an idea or thought that you grappled with, right? It could be something very personal that nobody even knows about, but it has impacted you and you have engaged with it. It can be very personal as well, right? So yes to all of those. The aim is to not write, any sort of epic story. It's really to write about something that has left its mark on you and something that you have engaged with.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The last one, I mean, actually this overlaps with essay 2. It says, how do we differentiate between essay 1 and 2 in approach in order to avoid any form of overlaps?
Okay. So the way to do that would be essay 1 is a belief, right? It's an idea or it's something that you held on to, which you are intellectually processing. So that's what you want to do. You want to intellectually process that, which is where research sort of comes into it, right? When you're debunking a myth or an idea and you're changing your view about something, it's an intellectual process. So the essay 1, the intent of essay 1 is to figure out how you think. The intent of essay 2 is a personal experience. So in your head, if you can look at the 2 essays and say, this is an intellectual sort of process that I'm going to break down and put down in my essay. Whereas in essay 2, it is a personal experience. It could be an event or something happened. It could be something that happened to you. It could be, something where your emotions and feelings were probably involved. It could also involve your thought, obviously, right? But in a sense, it is an experience that we're looking for. Of course, like I had said before as well, an experience is not necessarily one time. It can also be ongoing. So look at it sort of differently, something that you have had a personal experience with versus something that you have intellectually engaged with. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. Thank you. So essay 2, some of the questions say, some of these are I do think that you've actually spoken about them. So I'm just going to go over it very quickly. People asking specifically whether they can talk about So there's one interesting question which says that, can I write about a rejection which changed my perspective on life, but will it act against me in the selection process if I reveal my shortcomings?
Let me just answer this for everybody. Nothing you write or say is going to necessarily act against you or for you in the way that you're looking at it, because we're not working in binaries here, right? Your personal essays are not everything. Your interview is not everything. If you had attended Vineet's session, like the first session that he did a few weeks ago, and even Rahul's session last week, it was really about a holistic admissions process. So every aspect of your application form, your assessments, your essays, your interview, everything carries some weight, but nothing carries all the weight. So you don't have to worry about that, right? And I think if your perspective on a rejection or your perspective on something that's very unique that people normally don't write about is well thought out and written, it'll be a great reading experience for us as well. So don't hold yourself back on account of thinking that this may or may not be accepted, right? Like I said multiple times in my presentation, that please just be honest, because what's real to you is real to you. It's not real to anybody else, right? It's real to you. And that is what we really want to tap into.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So essay 3 now. So it says, can my third essay, the one about any possible development, be generic and not very personal in nature? Given that the essay is only 150 words, should we be focusing more on the development cause or innovation that we feel should take place, or more on how we would like to participate?
So one thing again I want to say for all your essays, the way the essays have been structured and the questions have been put out, I mean the prompts have been broken down within each prompt, is really where we want you to give equal weightage of words to each of those parts, right? So yes, in essay 3, you will talk about that so-called innovation or cause or event in the future, but we also are very keen to know how you think you are going to, how it's going to impact the world, right? And how you think you are going to contribute, or what skills you think you will require or need in what we will do. So if it's 150 words, maybe the first essay prompt is 400 words, right? So maybe you want to break that down by like 100 words each if there are different sections. So that way it will seem that you have engaged well with the question in its entirety, but also in its subsections.
Okay. Thank you. There's another one that says, I mean, these are like, now these ones are like splitting hairs a little bit, but I do feel like students are probably concerned, so I'll take a couple of those. So it says, so essay 3 says, how would you like to contribute? But if we talk about a possibly negative development, can we talk about how we want to prevent it? Are there any topics we shouldn't write about because they will be frowned upon, or are all ideas welcomed? I think you did sort of touch upon that.
Sort of say that all ideas are welcome. And yes, I mean, if it's something negative, please, by all means, I was just watching this show on Netflix about our planet, and it's quite a disheartening show, really. It's about kind of what we've done to our planet and where it's going, along with, not just climate change, but destroying our wilds and how it sort of affects our life. And a lot of things I didn't know about it, right? And I think what's happened to me after watching that has been that I want to make some personal life changes as well. So I want to ensure that some of those things don't happen, although I'm just one person, right? And we're talking about the universe. But in a sense, I do want to do my bit, right? So of course, if there's something you feel that you can sort of actually stop, if it's a negative thing, please, by all means, I think that would be very, very important.
So there have been a range of other questions that have also come in. I think that some of them might have culminated over other sessions where students didn't have a chance to answer some questions. So there are some miscellaneous sort of questions coming up where interviews are also, and essays are a part of it. So the first one says, the write-up on any 3 or 5 books, is it mandatory for the application? What happens if I'm not much of a reader and I don't have much to say?
Okay, so that's a good question. We put that question in this year. We didn't have it till last year because, and I just want to give a little bit of background for those of you who are listening as to why this is sort of an important question. It's not mandatory. So if you have nothing to say, please don't cook up anything, right? If you're not a reader, that's okay. It's completely okay. maybe you're a watcher, and maybe you don't or didn't have access, or maybe you didn't have time, or maybe there was no one to guide you. So that's okay. But one of the things that we also want you to understand is that the education at Ashoka is heavily based on a lot of reading and writing. So we want you to sort of also understand that it is an important part, right? Maybe you've not had the experience, and that's okay till now, but it is but if you are considering Ashoka seriously, it is going to be something that you'll have to start implementing in your life. So you can write anything. I mean, if you've read certain comics that you really enjoyed, that's fine too. It'll also just give us an idea of what you generally enjoy reading. So it doesn't have to be any necessarily very intellectual or very philosophical or very, heavily academic. Not, I mean, academic is not from your textbooks, but outside. But it can be anything really. It just gives us an idea of, what you enjoy reading as a person.
Okay, great. There are also a couple of questions on the aptitude assessment. So I think I'm just going to tackle that as well. So I'm just going to combine a lot of them. So it says, how does one prepare for it? Is it an entrance test? Will the AAT be considered to shortlist students for the interview, or will both of them be conducted on the same day? So I think there's a bit of, some general confusion. So maybe we could clear that up.
Okay, so the Ashoka Aptitude Assessments, so anybody who submits an application form needs to write the Ashoka Aptitude Assessments, that is both the Ashoka Assessments, that is both the Ashoka Aptitude Assessment and the on-the-spot essay, which will happen on one particular date. The dates are all given on the website for each round, so you can look that up. So if you decide to apply in round 1, which is November 18th, you submit your application form by November 18th. On the 29th, you write your assessments. If you don't write your assessments, then your application form is not complete. It's not an entrance test. It is a part of your application process. We cannot process your application, and we will not process your application. In fact, your application will become not eligible if you don't write your assessments. And then the shortlist for the interview will be a shortlist that is based on a holistic shortlisting process, where your application form, your personal essays, all aspects of your form, along with your Ashoka Aptitude Assessment, as well as your on-the-spot essay, are evaluated together for the shortlist. So it is mandatory. And I think I'll also say this, that whether you have an SAT score already or an Ashoka or an ACT score, and you may have done very well in both of them, that's great. You still have to write the Ashoka assessments. What we will do for those who have an SAT or an ACT score is that we have a way of doing equivalence. So if your SAT or ACT is better than your Ashoka Aptitude Assessment, we'll take that score. But having said that, you still have to write your Ashoka Aptitude Assessment and your on-the-spot essay. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah, thanks. That's very helpful. So there are a couple of more questions, but I think there's this one which is more relevant. I think it would be helpful for everyone. So it says, what is the benefit of applying in the first round? Is there a disadvantage of applying in later rounds, say round 3 or 4? Should I be worried about seats being filled up? Do you per se fill up 25% of your seats from each round?
I'm not really sure where that rumor has come from, about 25% of our seats, but no, that's not how we look at it. So let me just tell you, like we've always done, our admissions process is holistic, right? And our admissions process remains the same in every round. The benefit of applying early is for you. It's really for you. You will get to know the decision on your application and your candidature early on. While in the past we haven't had issue with number of seats, or like I like to say, number of beds, because that's sort of what we're going with at Ashoka. More and more we still are in our first campus, right? There's plans, where plans are in motion for our next campus, we're still in our first campus. So in terms of access or availability of residence facilities, that is a concern, and we are a residential program only. So it may eventually go down that path, but If you say that by no means do I want to apply in the first or second round, then of course, you're more than welcome to apply in the third or fourth round. But for your benefit and for you to have your decision early on before your pre-boards, before your board exams, we just want to encourage you to apply early.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so there are a couple of quick questions about whether LORs are mandatory, whether, what it means if you don't have a duration to write for your extracurricular activities, because we do ask for a duration. What if you don't have certificates? Certificates, of course, are not mandatory, but yeah, could you talk a little bit about that?
Do you want to talk about some of these real quick?
Yeah, sure. A letter of recommendation is, honestly, it is something that is beneficial for somebody who's reading an application form, but it is not mandatory in the form either. Students are not expected to fill that in. Of course, it comes highly recommended. It gives us an additional perspective on the student, but in case a student isn't able to provide that, it really doesn't make or influence the way that a student's shortlist goes, or whether they make it to the interview stage or not. Just give me a quick second to just collate some questions. We also just have room for one last question, so there's a lot of pressure to choose the right one. Okay, so in general, there seems to be a lot of questions about whether the essay should be written in first person, what constitutes informal writing. So I think this might be a helpful tip to give, and we can just end with that.
So before I answer this, let me just quickly answer the other question about your certificates and your duration for your extracurriculars. I think you can put down whatever is legitimate. If you don't have particular certificates, that's okay if it's a personal activity, right? But if you are saying that you've, say you've played a sport or you've performed at a certain level, right? We're assuming that you have gotten certificates for that. Or for example, if you hold a certain position in your school council, so then we're expecting that you would have at least a photograph of your badge with your name on it or some collateral for it. So see what you can find. You can also get letters from your school attached if you feel like you have absolutely nothing. And if there's somebody from your school on a school letterhead who's willing to vouch for that, we will accept that as well as an attachment. Okay, for our final question, the question was about what
writing in first person,
what constitutes formal sort of writing. I think when I said don't write informally or casually, of course, I don't mean you need to write very academic sort of way, but definitely don't write in very informal in terms of like texting language, where the start of every sentence, the word is not in capital, where you're writing your I's in small, where you can look at it and be like, okay, this is an unedited sort of something that you would type on your phone to a friend, right? We want you to be able to sit down and write it properly, complete your sentences, put your punctuation marks, and be thorough with it. I mean, if you, because this is not creative writing per se, right? So in that sense, we want you to be able to look at it as an essay. These are essays. And if you don't know what an essay is, I would say maybe do a little bit of research to see how our essay is written. There will be some sort of an introduction, there will be a body, there will be a conclusion. That's sort of how you would write an essay, right? And then you would structure and link your paragraphs together, and then it would be formal. And I know it's 400 words or 150 words each, but this is not like a chat conversation. I think that's what I meant by when I said it's not informal or casual.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Moshe. I'm sure that was a very helpful session for students who might be applying anywhere else. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to make a few quick announcements to students about any other upcoming webinars that they might be interested in. We have another session that is scheduled for 6 p.m. on November the 6th. This is an open house on the undergraduate program and admissions, which will be conducted by Mr. Ali Imran, Vice President, External Communications at Ashoka University. The registration for this will be provided in your chat box. So if you do want to sign up for it, I suggest you please click there. We'd also like to invite you for the next Scientifically Speaking webinar, which is on the 3rd of November at 7 p.m. This is a very interesting one. The topic is the power of language processing by Professor Sudeshna Sarkar. She's the head of Center for Artificial Intelligence and a professor of computer science and engineering at IIT Kharagpur. The link for the session is also provided in the same chat box. Just in case there is any sort of confusion, we would like to inform the audience that round one applications are actually open. The last date to submit your application for this round is 18th November. You can start your application on apply.ashoka.edu.in. Please visit the website. That's www.ashoka.edu.in for any other details on the admissions process and timeline. If you have any other further queries or you want to know anything specific to Ashoka's unique program, you can write to us at apply@ashoka.edu.in or call on the number that has been provided. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you next Friday.